if you're investing, second to financials, I'd say the most important thing is the environmental analysis that you can do on a company. Now, there is a framework that you can use to help analyse the environment, and that is called PESTEL. PESTEL stands for Political, Economic, Social, Technological, Environmental and Legal. It's very important to understand PESTEL because you are looking at how other external factors are affecting the company that you're either looking to purchase or indeed even hold. A quick disclaimer before we begin, these are educational videos. Please always do your own research before you take a position. What is PESTEL? If we look at political, it could be tariffs, it could be taxes, it could be trade restrictions, it could be access to open markets, for example. Economic, we could be talking about things like interest rates, we could be talking about economic growth rates, inflation, unemployment, and so on. For social, you could be looking at the population, how well educated are they, how old are they, what are their attitudes, what do they like to do. Technology, are there any substitutes, what is the R&D profile of the company that you're looking at, how aggressive are the competitors inside that same area. And when it comes to technology, are they developing at a faster rate? Is the technology of the company that you're looking at outdated? Environmental factors, what's the weather like in the place that you're looking at? Is it susceptible to things like tsunamis and so on? Climate change, how susceptible is it to climate change? For legal, are there any licenses that you might need? What are the laws like in the country that you're looking at? Are they susceptible to getting lawsuits? Do they do anything that might be slightly controversial? Or is there going to be new legislation which renders something that they do obsolete? I'll go through a worked example now using PESTEL. In this example, we're going to go through FairFX. FairFX. Now, if anybody doesn't know, FairFX are a currency card provider. You top them up before you go abroad, and then when you're abroad, you can use FairFX for transactions when you get there. So that's what FairFX do in a nutshell. This is a company that I did actually own shares in once upon a time, and I sold my shares in FairFX because of some of the things I'm going to mention in a minute. Keep the bad stuff on the left in red, and say we go on the good stuff on the right hand side. These are things that are going to be working in its advantage. Bad, we've got things like travel restrictions. So travel restrictions. So obviously with COVID at the moment, governments are restricting travel between countries, and that could affect a company like FairFX, or any company, to be honest, in the travel and tourism sector. Economic, you could have currency fluctuations. Because of currency fluctuations, people might not want to travel abroad, they might want to stay domestically, and that could be a reason for impact there. So for social, we have things like staycations, where people are just looking to stay domestically now. They don't actually want to travel abroad, or haven't wanted to travel abroad because of, obviously, this stuff at the top here, but it all sort of plays a part. So for technology, we have things like challenger banks, who have come in and are offering a lot more flexibility than a company like FairFX offers, and also maybe even offering different products, such as if you were to look at Revolut, you can purchase cryptocurrency on there, which is something that I believe you can't do on FairFX at this current moment in time. So it's just a little bit of an impact there, and actually this is one of the main reasons why I sold FairFX when I did, because I just saw the challenger banks coming in and impacting this market. Environmental, you've got a lot of people who are not travelling so much anymore because of the environmental impact, and also companies now quite cautious of this, whether it's from a cost element or whether it's from an environmental impact, but they might not be sending their employees abroad as much as they used to, so there is definitely that environmental impact there. So just impact of travel. And then legal, there's not a lot bad on the legal side really for a company like FairFX. I suppose you have things like the FCA, stroke PRA, which I think FairFX are regulated by the FCA, and as a result they just have a little bit of compliance to deal with, or they have quite a bit of compliance to deal with in order to do what they do. So I suppose on the opposite side, travel restrictions are now being lifted given all the work that's happened with the vaccines, so we could say reduction in restrictions. That could be a good thing for FairFX if you were to look at the share price. Currency fluctuations on the economic side. Well, we have a lot of savings, don't we? People have been saving during the pandemic and they haven't been spending as much. So we have a lot of consumers with savings, and they might be more inclined to go abroad and to spend that money abroad if they were to go. On the social side, you could say travel is always going to be in demand. People are always going to want to travel. You could say socially it's a resilient sector, almost. Resilient sector. Technology. Whilst there are challenger banks that have come into the space, you could say that their infrastructure is there. The infrastructure is there for them. So they have that card infrastructure set up. So that's a barrier to entry for anybody else who wants to come in. So for environmental, people are always going to want to travel. So I might just leave that blank for the time being. So on the legal side, that's kind of like a bit of both, isn't it? Because, yeah, they are regulated by the FCA, which means that they're going to have complete increased compliance, but it's also a good thing because it does increase the barriers to entry. So I suppose I could put that on this side as well, FCA regulation. So that's just a quick example of FairFX, which is now called Equals Group, I do believe. So if you were to look at this in the current day then, reduction in restrictions, this is probably going to be a good thing in the near term, short term for FairFX. Economically, currency fluctuations versus customers with savings, I think that's a really big thing because a lot of people have savings during this period of time. A lot of people want to go away. It's a resilient sector, like I said, people want to go away, so that's going to help as well. And the staycation thing, that was probably during the pandemic. We're post-pandemic now, at least some people would argue, and there should be people with balance here, so that's another thing in its favour. The technology argument, this is definitely in the favour of other companies in the marketplace. I keep going on about Revolut, but that's a good example there where the challenger banks probably have more to offer than FairFX does. Travel, a bit of a null argument really on both sides, so I'm going to leave that one out. And the regulation side, well, if they're not regulated, they shouldn't be doing the business, so I suppose that's kind of a mute side as well for the time being. So if you look at what we've got here, we've got these good points, which are resilient sector, which is quite generic to anybody in the sector, consumers with savings, which is very generic as well in the sector, and then reduction in restrictions, which is very generic for the sector. So if we compare that with the technology element, the other side, this is quite bad for them really. The fact that they've got so many challenger banks. Put across there. They've got so many challenger banks now entering the market which do the same things that they do. So I suppose you could say that these are actually quite short term and quite relational to the entire marketplace, whereas this is definitely impacting them individually because they lack in the technology department when compared to some of their competitors. Just a quick run through again, PESTEL looks at political, economic, social, technological, environmental and legal factors. If you like the video, please remember to like and subscribe, it helps me out a lot. And I have other videos on my channel as well, please check those out. I've got a video here on how to calculate market cap, and I've got a video here on how to calculate book value. Check those out, take care, and hopefully see you soon.